Welcome. This is Mark Hughes with Karma Talks, conversations that encourage a better you and a better we. Today we're with Chris Mann, and we're going to have an incredible conversation about how companies can really make the world a better we by coming from a more humanitarian point of view. So Chris, welcome, and tell us a little bit about Guayaki and how you kind of got started.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. It's great to have a moment to share. So with Guayaki Sustainable Rainforest Products, we started over 20 years ago. And for us, it was really about how can we take this amazing rainforest plant, yerba mate, which is a superior stimulant we like to talk about as having the health benefits of green tea, the strength of coffee, and euphoria of chocolate. And it natively grows in the rainforest. So what if we could bring it back to the forest where it natively grows, partner with forest communities so that we could create these amazing projects where you could actually prove that money grows on trees, because each year you just go in and prune the mate. And so we felt like between having this incredible product supported by an incredible project, it gave us the opportunity to really change the way that business is done.
Yeah, it's a totally different model.
It's totally different. And part of the element is, I studied economics in college, and all the things I was really interested in, like, social justice, environmental protection, were all considered externalities, right? They weren't part of the existing system. So in a sense, part of what our business model is about is how do we bring those externalities actually back into the business? And really that's something that has to happen if you're going to create a truly sustainable business.
Well, that's the part that makes a unique model, and the fact that so many other companies are going into into other countries and they're stripping the land of the resources and going in the opposite direction. So for you, it was really about preserving the integrity of the native culture, the native environment.
Yeah, and we, at the time, this is going back into the mid-90s, and a lot of the conservation groups were focused on either conserving land, but not really taking care of the people. And in some cases, conserving the land meant no people could be on it, right? It's just going to be completely protected. And then you had social justice groups that were focused on how do we work with people. And what we, recognized, and it was fairly common sense, was that a lot of times it's the same people that are, at the bottom of the economic rung are the ones that are creating some of the deforestation because they have no other option. And so it was like, wow, if we could really partner with these indigenous communities who have the most to gain as well as the most to lose by working with forests, then we could actually create economic models that stewarded forests and even did reforestation, as well as working with communities, empowering the communities, giving them high quality living wage jobs, and ultimately working for them to be able to extend their culture and, kind of find ways to take what they've been doing traditionally for hundreds or thousands of years and kind of bridge it into the modern era, and how do they create a sustainable livelihood. So it really involved all those different aspects.
That's incredible, because what I'm hearing you say is that so many of these folks are forced to take measures that may not be the best for them, their community, their environment, and you gave them hope. You gave them an alternative to seek a better ground, and it's a win-win.
Totally. In fact, one of our early slogans was, calling your mate a cup of hope. And because it is, it's a slippery slope, because there's many things that indigenous communities are teaching us, and there's many things that they're hungry to learn. And so to really be able to come together and be able to share openly and, kind of break through some of our different paradigms, because there's certain things that we believe that we don't necessarily consciously know that we believe, and there's certain things that these other communities believe that they don't necessarily consciously know, and you can create some conflict there. And so for us, it's coming in open-minded, having them come in open-minded, and really, create over time the relationships where we can really come to that win-win that you're referring to.
That's incredible. That's fabulous. So moving forward a little bit, you're cruising along, you're doing your thing, and you got approached to explore something that's called a B Corp. Tell us what a B Corp is and how that relationship evolved for you.
Yeah, so it's really cool. I mean, from early on when we first got started, we got certified organic, right? And organic really is dealing with the product itself predominantly. Deals a little bit with people, but it's predominantly product oriented. And then we moved into getting fair trade certification, which is, dealing more on the people side and incorporates a little bit of product, but more people side. So together you're kind of addressing the basic parts of your supply chain or your supply web, as we like to call it. But there was nothing that was really looking at the overarching company. And so these three gentlemen that got really passionate about how do we define all these great companies that exist, but in many cases are defined by what they aren't. In other words, like they aren't destroying or they aren't just, extracting resources. How do we come up with some terminology and a way to really certify that these companies are, really doing good stuff? And so the concept of B Lab and ultimately the B Corporation evolved. And I think this was around 2000, probably started in 2007. The conversations officially started the end of 2007, I believe it was. And what really attracted us to it was that you could really build this whole movement of companies that were engaged in trying to make the world a better place. And then you had a rigorous assessment that supported it all and basically gave each company a number. And you have to be, more than 80 on the schedule to be able to be a certified B company, B corporation. And so in that way, it shows you where you're strong, where you're weak, and you can build with other companies to try and address all these big issues.
So what would you say is the biggest, I don't know if it's a challenge, but you're kind of making a shift from, it's all about the bottom line. And we've had guests on the show that talk about one of the biggest challenges that we have in our world economy is this drive for, it's all about the bottom line, spare no expense in terms of social impacts and environmental impacts. So what is it? Is there a unique quality about those that are seeking B Corps? Are you less greedy do you make a pretty good profit doing what you're doing?
Yeah, I think there's many elements. There's a whole movement called impact investing, and impact investing is investing in companies, like B Corp type companies that are actively working to create a better place on this planet, whichever area they're focused in. Some of those companies, they've been shown, actually are more profitable than traditional companies. Some are, equal and some are less. And so some of it depends on which kind of challenges you're taking on and how you want to address them. So from our standpoint, I think, our profitability is probably on par with other beverage companies because all of these externalities are built into the business, which makes our costs higher, but they're also built into the price. So ultimately, to get this higher quality product that has, the B Corp behind it, that has sustainable community development built into it, it's a more expensive product. And so what we find is that most of our customers, I guess all of our actual customers and many people that are potential customers, they buy into that. They believe it. They say, I'm willing to spend the extra, maybe 10 cents, maybe 25 cents, could be 50 cents for a beverage because it's supporting something that I believe in. And I think part of what's driving that paradigm is that many people recognize that just focusing on bottom line isn't going to be enough to change the direction that we're headed right now. We face a lot of challenges as a species. We're doing a lot of destruction. And if we don't start investing back into environmental restoration and taking care of people, then we're not going to exist long as a species. So I think, we kind of have on one level these major, climactic forces that are pushing down on us. And the other, we have people raising up and saying, there could be a better way to do this.
Exactly. And I think now more than ever, we have a growing number of people that are willing to support and want to support those people that are doing good deeds in the world. That's the shift that's taking place. It's been there, but do you attribute anything in particular to the growth in that mentality, that philosophy, and or is the growth of B corporations on the rise?
Yeah, I would say, definitely growth of B Corps are on the rise. In terms of the paradigm shifts, I think what's happening is that, kind of the extraction mentality, the, low cost sort of environmental, not necessarily that you're trying to destroy environment, but that you're not incorporating that into your business planning and decisions. That's an old school kind of mentality, and it's dying. As the people that hold that most vociferously start to die, right? That philosophy dies with it. And in place of that is we have, the first generations that are coming of age in a time of social media and in a time where we have awareness of climate change and global warming in particular. And so I think the combination is you have, this whole group of kids and, 20-somethings who've grown up with this awareness, have the ability to share with each other and are going like, well, wait a second, what are we doing? Like, this doesn't make any sense. Why are we creating this kind of world? Whereas, I'm 47, so just, a generation older, but we didn't have internet. So a lot of times you felt like you were all alone, right? I have these feelings, but no one else shares this. And so I think that's the power of social media. And that's really where B Corp has stepped in trying to identify that, hey, we're not alone. There's thousands of companies that all share these beliefs, and we're all wanting to get better. And we're all willing to take the time and the energy to invest in ways that we can all be better and invest in each other to make each other better. And so I think there's well over 2,000 B Corps now. So it's been growing really, really quickly. And in fact, I think it's something like a third of all B Corps are now outside of the United States as well. So we're seeing this is not just, something that's happening domestically. There's a global movement that's happening.
So from a philosophical point of view, as a business owner, do you separate, your business making model from your social conscious model, or is it truly integrated? Is it one, or is it kind of, we're going to do this and we're going to produce this, but then over here we're going to allocate X amount of money here, or is it more integrated? Is it more? You understand my question?
Absolutely, yeah. Our aspiration is completely to integrate it, and if I'm completely honest with myself, we haven't completely integrated it. But that's where we aim for, and that's why we built this whole business model we call market-driven restoration, which really the core element of it is that we're paying a higher price for higher quality mate that we work with indigenous communities and small family farms that are growing mate in the rainforest, which ultimately costs more because you have lower yields. It's more complicated to harvest out of the forest than it would be to just plant in rows and monocrop. But ultimately, you're getting a higher quality product, and ultimately, you're investing in the community because they now have this annuity. They have this forest that's going to last hopefully forever. And the services that forest provides are also things that are helping the world as a whole. And what I mean by that are things like, helping to absorb carbon. We did a third-party carbon assessment, and it actually found that we are sequestering 3 times as much carbon from the forest that we're participating in than what's being emitted by our entire business, right? So in other words, if you just did from a pure carbon greenhouse gas analysis standpoint, you could say that Guayaquil is a sustainable business, and in fact is absorbing 3 times more carbon than what we're emitting. And those are the kinds of things that are exciting to us because it's not a bottom line element, but it's something that ultimately does come to our bottom line, because when people look to Guayaquil, we want them to look to a company that they can trust to be really driving the edge of what is sustainable, what is restoration, and what is a company that I can feel really good about.
Yeah, that's incredible. And at some point, it just becomes a part of your essence, of your DNA, of who you are and how you present yourself. So we're going to take a little break right now, and we're going to take a look at your video. Give us a little intro to what we're going to see. This is a video about your company and the efforts you're doing. Give us a little intro.
Yeah, so for years, people always are trying to get us to explain the business model. It's a little bit complicated. And, people want to say, well, how much, what percentage do you give to charity or whatever? And we say, look, it's really not about that. It's about integrating the whole business model. So the fact that we're doing that and also introducing a product, yerba mate, that most people had not heard of, we were tasked with how do we create like a 2-minute video that's entertaining, that brings in what is mate and integrates it into our whole business model. And so that's what you'll see now.
Oh, that's great. So give us a moment here, folks. Take a break. Check this out. Watch this video. We're going to come back and we're going to jump back in with Chris Mann and talk about some things about what's happening in the world and where people are, the direction that businesses are going, and how you can make a real difference in moving that movement forward. We'll be right back.
There are many kinds of buzzes in this world. Some buzzes are good. Some buzzes are bad. And some are really bad. But the buzz you get from Guayaquil yerba mate is good, exceptionally good. Because hot or cold, mate is not your typical caffeine drink. It doesn't just wake you up, it helps you come to life. Filled with vitamins, amino acids, and antioxidants, it's healthy for you like tea. And it tastes great. Mate contains theobromine, the same mood-elevating compound found in chocolate. And like coffee, it picks you up and gives you clarity. But it's less acidic, so it's easier on your stomach. But perhaps most impressive is Guayaquil yerba mate's ability to put an end to this buzz. Over 95% of South America's Atlantic rainforest, the native home of yerba mate, has been cut down for hardwoods, to grow GMO crops, and to raise cattle. But Guayaquil's restorative business model is helping to protect the remaining 5% of Atlantic rainforest by sustainably harvesting organic mate in the shade of its native environment, proving that the rainforest is worth more to everyone standing than it is cut down. Guayaquil partners with small farmers and indigenous people who are committed to caring for the forest, and harvesters are paid a fair wage. This stable annual income offers local communities a real alternative to the destructive industrial model. When money grows on trees, no one cuts them down. And Guayaquil's way doesn't just halt rainforest destruction. It's regenerative, and it's on track to restore over 200,000 acres in the next 10 years. So while there's no way to avoid all of life's bad buzzes, you can always choose the drink that gives you a good buzz you can feel great about. Guayaquil yerba mate. Come to life.
Hi, and welcome back. So we're here with Chris Mann. And Chris, so tell me, is there other B Corps that you can share and talk about and the different types of projects that they're taking on?
Yeah, and so I think I shared there's over 2,000 B Corps, so an incredible array of companies. And I think coming back to the point that no matter how good any of these companies are and how proactive they are, what we really need are networks of all these companies to come together, to be raising the bar, to be driving the kind of global change that we all need. And so for us, we're incredibly inspired by all our B Corp friends, some of which we work closer than others. And so in particular, calling out companies like Dr. Bronner's, like Alter Ego, Bureo, which is a company that's making sustainable skateboards. So they're recovering fishing nets out of Chile and turning them into skateboards. Really
Wow.
cool stuff. There's companies like Patagonia and Ben & Jerry's that people are more aware of because they're larger companies. And then in the Bay Area, we've got, I mentioned Alter Ego, we've got Numi and Nutiva and 18 Rabbits and a bunch of great companies.
So, and then you said that there's a new movement that's starting, or a new organization that's starting that people could be a part of to help advance advance and support the growth of B Corps. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so for us, a number of the folks I mentioned are also founding B Corps. So we've been involved in the B Corp movement for a long time and love all the work that's being done and all the things that are being accomplished, which I can get into in a little bit later as well, because there's a lot on the legislative front that I think is really important. But then there's also just some very tactical type things like packaging. Packaging is a big source of waste and carbon emissions and everything else. So a number of us were talking, and I think it was about four years ago or so, we started a group called One Step Closer to Organic Sustainable Community, OSC squared. And the idea is that none of us have the answer, but if we all partner together, we can get one step closer. And so there's about 15 to 18 companies that are mostly all Bay Area companies. And we kind of take some elements of a traditional CEO roundtable, but incorporating in also how do we work on big projects that can really drive change for the whole industry. So our first one was a packaging coalition working on creating a biodegradable home compostable package, working on pouches to start with, and then overwraps for tea bags. And then another big one that we're focused on now is a climate collaborative. And so we're working also with Paul Hawken and his Project Drawdown, which is a book that just came out a couple weeks ago, that's documented the top 100 ways that we can actually draw down carbon out of the atmosphere and turn around climate change. So there's a lot of really dynamic stuff, but we need, a bunch of us to all get together to work on it.
And how do we do that? How can people get together and do that? Do you have a suggestion?
Yeah, so one thing in terms of the climate collaborative, that's a big one, and so you can go to the website for that and join. And so the concept there is it's getting companies to just come together and make a commitment, at least one commitment in one of our key climate areas, and then the climate collaborative will provide partners and tools that can help you work on those different elements. Because what we heard over and over from companies was, we know climate is a really big issue. We really want to address it, but we're just not sure where to start. And so that was the big idea here was, okay, well, let's make it really easy. We're going to just create, I think it's 9 basic areas. It's 8 or 9 basic areas. You can pick as many as you want. You can make change in all of them. You can make change in just one of them. And then we'll have tools to help people walk down that path. And if we can do that from a collective standpoint, we can all collaborate on it, we can really start to move the needle. So that's just one example. The other, as I mentioned, we started OSC Squared as a Bay Area group, but it's something that I also would encourage companies from other parts of the country to also start. And we're happy to provide tools and things to help get started. But for us, it's really about everyone just kind of stepping back, looking at your network, figuring out where you can take steps, and then taking those steps.
So, the question that I get asked a lot, and that I think about a lot is it possible for us to go in and change the mindset of the current model, the current the status quo, right? Or is it better for us to sort of almost create a whole new paradigm? What are your thoughts? Do you think it's possible to go into some of these corporations and to do trainings or to do something to have them make that shift and move more in this direction? What do you think?
I don't think there's one set answer. I mean, I think every company is different. And, when you look at a company, even the largest companies in the world, they're made up of people. And so within those companies, you have some people that are old paradigm and they're focused on, advancing their career, or maybe they're even in a position where they have, all of the political and legal and accounting, that whole infrastructure is really driving towards the old paradigm, right? And so the people that are in the highest position, sometimes they say, hey, I'd love to do these things, but we're a public company, and if I do this, our shareholders are going to revolt, and I'll end up getting fired or whatever. But even within those kinds of companies, there's people that are coming in at different levels who are wanting to drive that change. And so I think much like politicians, a lot of times politicians are like, look, I'm not going to be the leader on changing this, but if you show me that there's this underground support that's going to lift me up, then you can carry me, and I'm gonna make the changes, the legislative changes that need to happen. But I will give just one quick example, and this is relative to B Corps again. Is one of the ideas on B Corps is that you can actually as part of being a certified B Corp is you have to change your actual articles of incorporation to address the type of work that you're focused on aside from just the single bottom line. And in the past, there's been, legal challenges to that, in that if you're not maximizing profits, you potentially could be sued by shareholders. And so what B Corp set out to do was create legislation around, all the world, but starting in the United States, to make it legal to be able to change those articles of incorporation and give you some legal backing for it. And that seemed like a pretty audacious task, especially, when at the time it got started, California couldn't even pass a budget. But now I think there's 30 states that either have legislation or have pending legislation around B Corps, including California. So we're actually now a California benefit corporation as well. So I think that's just one example where you look at something that was really ingrained deeply into the law and into political and legal structures that was able to be changed with a focused effort, with a lot of collaboration, and a lot of persistence.
I want to make sure that people are clear about this, that are in these other states that may be coming up against this legislation that you're talking about. The purpose of the legislation is to make it possible for B corporations to focus on humanitarian efforts and not be bound by the bottom line, right? And that shouldn't be confused with any other kind of, fiscal restraints or conservative, agenda, correct? So,
correct.
Okay. So is there a name for this sort of policy or model?
It's generally called benefit legislation.
Okay, benefit legislation.
Yeah,
okay.
And part of what's been confusing for people is on one level there's your actual organizational structure under state law. And so like we're a California corporation, but there's, corporations from every state. And you can be a benefit corporation under the laws of that state. And it's related, but it's independent of actually being a certified B corporation. So it's the group behind B Corporation. B Lab is the one that provided a lot of the legal work for driving it through all the states. But they're two separate. So you can be a certified B Corp without being a benefit corporation in your state, and you can be a benefit corporation in your state without being a B Corp. But what we really encourage is for everyone to be both. Be a certified.
Now you'll have to excuse me. I'm sorry. You're going to have to explain to me again. I missed that. What's the difference between a B Corp and a benefit corp?
So the B Corp is basically a company that goes through this very in-depth assessment. That's basically an audit of your whole business practices, everything from your governance to your community activities to the way you work with your employees and team to your supply web. And it has, it's several hundred questions that's all supported with data. And then you get an assessment score. You have to, if you score 80 or more on this assessment, then you're eligible to become a certified B corporation. Okay, so that's a B corporation.
Okay.
So part of what happens is then as a B corporation, you say, well, I'm a certified B Corp. I want to change my articles of incorporation to say that we exist not only to maximize profit, but we also exist to create environmental restoration and social justice. And so in particular, Guayaquil's mission is to steward and restore at least 200,000 acres of rainforest and create at least 1,000 living wage jobs by 2020.
And who wouldn't want to buy your product? Right?
Yeah.
Right?
And so embedded in that,
right?
exactly. Yeah. So embedded in that, because we have such a direct model, there's also an economic element that's embedded in that. But we don't want it to be purely economic. We want it all to come together synergistically. And so what could happen, like I'll give you an example, was when Ben & Jerry's was sold to Unilever, as I understand it, there were people within Ben & Jerry's that didn't want to sell the company. And what they were told was, well, look, this is a great deal for shareholders, and if you can't come up with a better deal, an equal or better deal, then you could face shareholder lawsuits by not going through with it. And so that's part of what the benefit corporation legislation tries to address, is to actually have it be that you have formed as a legal benefit corporation to say that you have a double or a triple bottom line, not just economic. And I don't think it's really been tested legally yet, but the concept is that if you were to get sued by shareholders, that you could say, look, we were clear in that we incorporated as a benefit corp, that we weren't just about maximizing shareholder profit. And in that way, in the case of if you were selling the company or whatever, you could justify a company that maybe was going to pay a little bit less, but was way more aligned with your values and ultimately what's going to make you a better company over the long haul.
So what's the first step for a business that says, I think I want to jump in here, I want to do this? Where do they go to start the process to become a B Corp?
Yeah, so bcorporation.net is where you would go. And at bcorporation.net, there's the full assessment, and then they've also created a shortened version. So there's a shortened version of the assessment that you can go through that I forget how long it takes, but I think, like 20 minutes to an hour, something like that, that will give you a good sense of where you are and where maybe you need to do some work. And then if you want to get certified, you go and do the full assessment. And it's a big commitment. The full assessment takes a lot of time, depending on how much data you have and all those kinds of things at your fingertips. But we found that it's incredibly valuable, not just for becoming a B corporation, but also just to get a sense of where you stand. As I mentioned, where are the areas where you're really strong and where are the areas that you need to do a lot of work still. And believe me, every company has their areas of strength, and everyone has a lot of areas that they need work on. It's a 200-point max assessment. And I think Guayaquil scored like 120 or something. So, we have a long ways to go, I think. I don't think there's many companies that are over like 150. Most of them are, much lower. So it's a very difficult assessment, and it's a lot for everyone to learn from.
Well, if you're doing what you're doing and you're at 120, boy, that's pretty remarkable. I mean, I have to say. So
yeah.
So how has all of this that you've done, how has it changed you as an individual?
Well, I think it's incredibly empowering, right? Because a lot of I think when I first came into business, And, you know, I had all these ideas of things that made sense or that I wanted to do. And, you know, conventional wisdom was like, you know what, that doesn't really make sense. You know, what planet are you from? Or, you know, these are crazy, or that's a nice idea, but it'll never work in reality. And now I see there's green MBA programs where, you know, there's actually business schools that are teaching these elements. And in fact, you know, even the biggest business schools and most respected business schools that maybe aren't known, you know, are known for more teaching the conventional business models. They're now recognizing that students want to learn these new business models, and that if they don't start to integrate it into what they're teaching, that they're going to lose some of the best and brightest students. So for me, it's really that empowerment of like, you know, these aren't just crazy ideas. They're great ideas. And you know what? They're just the beginning. You know, the ideas that I have are now becoming kind of old school, right? Those are just like everyday ideas now. It's the new generation coming in. It's like, well, we need to take it further. Let's push even more. And so that's what's exciting, is when we feel like we're just getting started.
That's great. I applaud you. I've watched you on the side, not you personally, but your company, and read about you and heard about you. And it's very inspiring. It's very inspiring to those of us that are out there looking and searching. And I just encourage people that are looking at ways in which they can make a difference in their business to explore and go to, is it bcorp.net? Did I say that right?
Yeah, bcorporation.net.
bcorporation.net. You know, check it out. See if this is something for you. Chris, I want to thank you so much and for joining us. This has been enlightening to hear your perspective. And wouldn't it be nice if we can't, one day at a time, it's by raising our own personal consciousness that we can make a shift, a global shift. And that someday it might be possible that we make this influence and share these points of views with the big corporations that are doing so much destruction and injustice in the world, and help them to see the benefit and the personal rewards, like Chris mentioned, in terms of feeling empowered and being a part of making a difference in this world. So this is Mark Hughes with Karma Talks. Thank you so much for joining us. And I hope that you take each and every day to take responsibility for the difference that you can make by making the world a better place. Have a great day. As we continue to explore conscious solutions to our world's most pressing problems, be a part of the conversation and subscribe to our Karma Talks channel. Thank you.